Hi everyone, my name is Dawn Stahura and I'm a research and instruction librarian for the sciences and the health sciences here at Salem State University. And today I'm going to be doing a demonstration on how to use EndNote. And if you have never been to the library's website before, we're going to start out at the Salem State University website, which is salemstate.edu. And you'll just come down to the Academics tab and select Library. And you're going to scroll a little bit until you get to visit the library's website, and you will click it. And then we are going to scroll down today until we see this section for research guides. And we're going to browse by subject. Now by default, it sets it up by subject, but we actually want to go to all guides. And you can actually search on the page by putting in EndNote. And we will see it here on EndNote Basic Citation Management. So this is the guide that I'll be working from today. And this is the guide that you will refer back to if you have any questions moving forward as you're using EndNote. So EndNote is a software program that is free. We are using the free online version of EndNote. There is certainly a more robust version that EndNote wants you to pay for. That's entirely up to you, but I will tell you that the online version does everything you need it to do. So it's kind of a waste of money to get the desktop version. So what EndNote does is it allows you to store the resources that you find for your research projects, whether that be a PDF of an article, a website, maybe you have found a YouTube video. This is a place where you're going to store all of those citations. And you can also store the actual PDFs of the citations that you collect. One of the benefits of using the online version, besides the fact that it's free, is that it exists in a cloud so that it doesn't matter where you are. EndNote is not associated or tied to any particular computer. So you can access your resources anywhere that has an internet connection. And while that might not sound so exciting, the piece I think that really sells it for students is that EndNote also has a Microsoft Word plugin that will help you not only cite your sources for your paper, but it will create a bibliography for you. And I'm going to demo all of that for you today. So on this guide itself, I have different tabs. So there's the one of getting started, how do you set up your account, how do you add items to your EndNote, how do you add items using Google Scholar, and then how do you create your bibliography using Microsoft Word. So to get started, you can do one of two things. You can click on this EndNote Basic right here, or you can click the box here for the EndNote logo. So it doesn't really matter. Now, you do not have an account. So what will happen is you will need to register for an account from that previous homepage. And I will stress to you to not use your Salem State email, to use whatever email you have that's not associated with Salem State. So whether that be a Gmail account. And I say this for two reasons. One is that you don't want to get caught up in a password recovery loop where, let's say, you no longer have access to your Salem State email once you graduate, and then you can't remember your password to EndNote, and it's pushing that password recovery to an email you no longer have access to. And the other reason is, whatever you put in EndNote, your citations, PDFs, you get to keep once you graduate from Salem State, so nothing is tied to the university. So if you are doing research, maybe you're doing a thesis, maybe you're going to go on to get a master's degree, and you want to keep track of the stuff that you have in EndNote, you'll be able to do that because it's not tied to Salem State. So once you register, it's going to send an email to whatever email address you use to set up your account. So you're going to need to go there, and you're going to need to follow the link that it sent you, which will bring you back to the login page where you will log in. And you will see this when you finally get into EndNote. You will notice on the left-hand side, I've got a bunch of things showing up that you won't see. You will see all zeros under all my references and unfiled because we haven't done anything yet. So to get started, what we will do is come to this middle section for store and share, and we will create a new group. So EndNote uses the word group, but it could also be seen as a folder. And what you'll be creating is a folder for either a class project that you have. Maybe you want to call it your class name. So maybe you're in Biology 101. That would be what you would call your group. It's entirely up to you. It doesn't matter. So let's create a new group. You would select this. You would type the name, and then you would hit OK. I just created a group called COVID-19, and whatever group name you just created, you will see a number 0 here for number of references because we have not put anything in it yet. This Manage Sharing button could be used for if you're in a group project and you want to share your references with another group member. You could set that up to where each group member could be contributing resources to this group, no matter where you're all physically located. So that's a really cool feature of EndNote, that instead of emailing each other back and forth with references that you find, you could actually just use EndNote to add items. So you can think of this tab right here, My References, as the EndNote homepage. So if we click this, you should now see on the left-hand side the group you just created under this My Groups section. And you can see my COVID-19 is showing up. And again, I have 0 items in there because I haven't added anything yet. 2 things to point out. One is anything that you add to EndNote will always be listed under All My References. And you can see I have 27 items. And it will also show up in whatever folder you assign it to. So let's say I found an article that I want for my COVID-19. Once I assign it to COVID-19, it will show up here, but it's also going to show up in All My References. So this is helpful to know if you're doing a lot of different research projects and maybe you can't remember where you filed a particular article under what group. Let's say you've got, like me, you've got quite a few groups that you've created. It will always be locatable under All My References, regardless of where else you have moved it. So it will not disappear from All My References until you move it to your trash. And you can see I've not actually emptied my trash, but nothing will be removed ever until it is removed from your trash. Now that's good to know too, that if you remove something from, let's say, your biology group, and we get rid of an article, it's still going to be here in All My References until you remove it from here. Okay, so how do we add things into our EndNote? Well, this is pretty easy and straightforward. So if we go back to the EndNote guide, there is an EndNote quick PDF guide that I have created that looks like this. And it is basically walking us through step by step what I am talking to you about today. So after this video, if you are a person who needs to have physical documentation, this is downloadable and you can print it out and use it for a quick reference if you need it. So here's a database. Right now we are in Academic Search Premier. I have the word witchcraft up here because we are coming into the fall season here at Salem, in Salem, Massachusetts. So let's just go ahead and we're going to hit search. And let's say that I find an article. Okay, this looks good. The fear of witchcraft claims in refugee law. So if I click on the article title, you can see that there is a PDF version, which is good. And if you come over here to the tools on the right, we are looking for an export button. And this will be true in no matter what database you're searching in. You're going to be wanting to look for the export option. And regardless of whether or not you see an option to direct export to EndNote, you always, 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 no matter if you are in Google Scholar, if you are in this particular database or another, you always want to do a direct export in RIS format, always. And you can see under here in the parentheses, it has EndNote listed. So to recap, always direct export in RIS format and hit save. And it's going to show up obviously at the bottom of your screen as an RIS document. For most folks, your computer will not be able to open it. And that's okay, because we actually don't need to open it. Once you download it, so it's showing up right here on my computer, this file is going to show up in your download folder on your computer. So this is where you will pull this from. So we're going to go back into EndNote, and we are going to come up here to this collect button. And we are going to import our references. So it's wanting to know, what file do you want me to import? So if I hit choose file, I am looking for this RIS that is showing up in my downloads folder. And depending on what database you're using, you may get an indication of what database it came from. It doesn't really matter. It would only matter if you had like a bazillion things in your downloads folder. Okay, so we're gonna click this. And now it's wanting to know, how am I importing this thing? So you are always, always, always going to use the import option that is called RefMan. I know that sounds really weird. It sounds like a superhero, like here comes RefMan. So here it is, RefMan RIS, always, always. And then you get the option to send it to a particular group. So for you, you will only see, one group show up. And I'm going to move it to my COVID-19, and I'm going to hit import. It tells us that, hey, I just imported one reference. To get back to our main page, we hit my references. And now we see that COVID-19 now has one reference. And if I select it, here it is. So here is what EndNote is doing. And this is the purpose of importing all of your references into EndNote. So it tells you who the author is. It tells you what year it was published. Here's the title of the article, what journal it came from. And if I wanted to get back to this particular article, because you will see there's no PDF with it. EndNote is not capable of pulling PDFs with a citation like Zotero can. So if I wanted to get back to this, I could just click go to record. And here is the article. Now, remember I said that you could keep and store your PDFs in EndNote, and that's true, but you will have to manually upload them. So let's say that I do want to actually have this article in my EndNote because I know I'm going to use it for my paper. So I'm going to download it, and I'm going to hit save. And when I come back into my EndNote, here is that article. I can attach it using the paperclip. So I'm going to attach a file. I'm going to choose one. And here is my article. And I'm going to upload it. So now if I wanted to reference this article, if I wanted to read it, and I want it to be associated with the actual citation for the article, I can upload it using the paperclip. Okay. So if we're referring back to that handout I gave you, we are just going to reiterate we're using the RIS file option, and we are using RefMan. Okay. So we all know we're going to be using Google Scholar. And here is a cool thing that you can do with Google Scholar. So you're going to need to sign into your account. And if you come over here to the 3 bars and you go to settings, right down here under a bibliography manager, oh my gosh. I can't remember what it says by default, but you want to select, actually, I think it may say bib text. You want to select RefMan and hit save. So now if we do a search, you will see now under all the article titles, there's an option now to import into RefMan. Now here's something really cool. So you can star the articles that you want to import into EndNote. So you could certainly just do one if that's the only article that you found and you want to import. You would select this import into RefMan and see it says scholar.ris, so scholar standing for Google Scholar. And if I were to come into my EndNote and do collect again and import my references, I'm going to select the Scholar RIS. I'm going to once again scroll down until I get to RefMan. I'm going to put it in my COVID-19. It says it was successful. I'm going to come back to my references. And now I've got 2 articles in my folder. So here is the one I just added. Another cool thing to pay attention to is it tells you what date you added this particular article. And this is important if, let's say, let's look at one that I have. I've got in this occupational therapy folder 8 articles. And let's say I just want to double check that the article I just added actually showed up. It's not going to be super helpful for me if I'm seeing things that I added first in February. So you can always sort this. And by default, it's sorting by author. You can switch this to added to the library, newest to oldest. So in this case, the last time I added anything was June 11th. So just to keep in mind, if you've got a lot of things in your folder, 2 is not burdensome to manage. Okay, so let's go back to Google Scholar. So let's say instead of 1 article, we had 2 articles that we were interested in saving in our EndNote. So you could star them, and you see here it says save to your library. And let's also do this top one. Your library in Google Scholar is located right here on the right by the star. And if you select it, it keeps track of all of the references and articles that you have starred. So you can do two things. This is so cool. If you come up here to the export button, this is where you will export. You can select you can select all of them that you want to export. And now you see this is actually clickable. Before it wasn't, because we hadn't actually selected anything yet. So let's do these three. Let's export. And we're going to do by refman, remember? Here it is. Now it's citations RIS. I guess it switches what it calls if it has more than one item. I don't know. And again, we're going to come up here to collect. We're going to import a reference. We're going to select citations, refman. By this third time, you should be experts at this, at what you're looking for, and COVID-19. And it says it put 3 references in. Let's go check. There should be 5 now. And there they are. Okay, cool. So if we're following along in the handout, we have exported stuff into EndNote. Okay. And we have looked at how to add our PDFs, remember, by clicking on the paperclip. So the next thing I want to show you is formatting. So you can create a bibliography from within EndNote. So if your professor says they would like for you to provide a list of references that you're going to use on your paper, you can actually create that bibliography from within EndNote. And how you would do that is under Format, click Bibliography, select which group you want to create a bibliography for, so in this case, COVID-19. And it's asking you to select what style you want it to format in. Now, this will be whatever your professor is requiring you to cite. So that could be APA, it could be MLA, it could be conservation biology. So that will be whatever you are tasked with. And you can see there are like literally hundreds of these. Some of them are very specific to particular journals. So scholarly journals, some oftentimes will have their own way of citing. So let's just pick something. Goodness, there's just like so much stuff. There's just like so many things, and I'm just trying to find like one that would be something we would all be somewhat familiar with. Okay, here we go. So here's APA. Whew. And let's just go ahead and we'll use the 7th edition because that's the newest one. And then you can decide how you want to download it as a actual website, or I'm going to do this RTF, or rich text file. And if you preview and print, you get your citations. And then you could print this if you needed to. At the bottom of the printing, it will show that you got this from EndNote. So if that's something that is required, that you have to say, let's prove that you can create a bibliography inside of EndNote, that will be on the bottom of the printout. Okay, now remember I said that you could use Microsoft Word and do a plugin. So it's called Cite While You Write. And depending on what computer you have, so whether that be a PC or a Mac, you will have to install based on what you're working with. If you do not have access to Microsoft Word, you can get it for free through Salem State. So just keep that in mind. And then once you download, it is going to show up, and I'm going to have to do a new share so that you can see this. So here's Word. It's going to show up right up here in your menu. So here's EndNote. And if I click this, the first time you use it, it's going to ask you to sign in. So you will use your login information that you use to create your EndNote account. And you can start to see the types of things you can do. You can insert citations into your paper, and you can select the style that you're going to write your paper. So let's just go ahead and type something. This is the best paper ever. And let's say that I need to cite that. So I would come over here to insert citations. And you do not have to remember specifically, you know, the entire title of the paper. So if you can remember maybe who the author was or something that was in the title is helpful. So let's say I know that it was about COVID, and I've got 3 things showing up with COVID-19 in the title. So let's say I want to quote Dr. Fauci. And Dr. Fauci said, this is the best paper ever. So I'm going to highlight that article, and I'm going to hit insert. And it has cited for me and created my bibliography. And this is set to conservation biology. So by default, you will see the standard styles like the APA and the Chicago. If you don't see a style listed that you need to use, so let's say you were tasked with using MLA, you could select another style and you could search from that long list. And once you select something, it will now show up under your styles. So what do you do, let's say, if you're typing your paper and you forgot that it's listed under conservation biology, but you really need it under APA? You do not have to start over. This is the best thing. So you'll just highlight your paper. So whatever it is that you've written, you will come up here to Style, and you will say, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do APA, and it has now changed it. And let's just make sure that we do this properly. Okay. So you can change your paper. One thing I will say to you, so let's do another, this is the best day ever. Lots of things happening. Let's do another citation. Let's cite this person. And I'm not quite sure what is happening with this. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to actually type this again. This is the best. You're getting to see a glitch. I'm going to go back to Dr. Fauci. For some reason, the thing that he wrote is not wanting to cite properly. I'm glad this is happening in a live demo because all kinds of fun stuff happens. So this is the best paper error. Let's quote someone else then. Okay, so it is citing now under APA. I suggest to students that as you're typing your paper, just to hit return a few times to get your bibliography out of your way. It will not repeat. So let's say, for example, that I wrote some other stuff and I need to cite this COVID team again. So here's the COVID team. It is not going to duplicate for you because it recognizes that you've already cited those folks. So this, I think, is where students really get excited because of the capability EndNote has to help you format your papers. And again, this is located under the Format Cite While You Write. Okay. So another thing I just want to point out before I close the video is if a citation is wrong in Google Scholar or in the databases, it's obviously going to be imported wrong. And citations are notoriously famous for having mistakes. So if you notice a mistake is in a particular citation. So let's say, for example, I can tell you right now that if I was actually citing with APA, this title is a problem because an APA citation, only the first word is capitalized in the article title or after a colon or semicolon or proper nouns. So I would have to change this. Now the good news is once you change it, it's forever corrected. So you don't have to worry about coming back into the record and changing it. And any of these fields are clickable. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit save. So now, when I go back, you can see this article now has been changed and corrected. So just to keep an eye out for that just because you found your reference in a database or on Google Scholar doesn't mean that it was cited correctly. So just looking them over so that when you go to write your paper, your citations are actually correct. And again, on the EndNote research guide, you can always come back and get this information. You can download this quick PDF, which we were working off of here. And you can also pause this video and take all the time you need to install Microsoft Word and get yourself situated.